Hi, this is Dr. Kimberley Linert, author of the book Visualizing Happiness in Every Area of Your Life and host of this podcast, Incredible Life Creator. And today my guest is Dr. Pat Boulogne, or Dr. Pat as we call her. And Dr. Pat is a functional medicine practitioner, coach, chiropractor, speaker, and author of the book, Why Are You Sick, Fat, and Tired? She has helped thousands of over the last 35 years stop adapting their lifestyle to pain and chronic problems by focusing on the whole person. The result is that her clients and patients find out the why and cause of the problem and identify the starting point, what, why, where, and how to begin with their health journey to live longer, better, and healthier. Dr. Boulogne is the founder and principal of Ask Dr. Pat Health Team Network, a company dedicated to skyrocketing your health, lifestyle, and mindset with strategies and programs that make sense and help you age gracefully, think, move, and feel better, and live longer and happier. Welcome to the podcast, Dr. Pat.
Thank you so much. I appreciate being here with you, and I love sharing knowledge. So, it's from our connections before, we have such a nice, camaraderie, and we're both doctors and all that stuff like that. But, the bottom line is, when I'm looking at somebody, whether they're a doctor or CEO or whatever, is it's like, what's their soul look like, and I was really attracted to you as a friend and then a colleague because of that connection.
Well, thank you so much. And I feel the same way.
Yep.
So other people can get to know you. Why don't you tell us your story, how you started out, how you got to be doing what you're doing now?
Well, I always say that, as a kid, I always played doctor. I never played the nurse. I never was sick. And I never had, I didn't die as a kid when you play doctor. And interesting enough, I've never had a client or a patient die either. And so when I was doctor, and so that's a good, statistic for that. And, I've always had an interest in science. I can remember one day asking my father if, I go, if you eat cold food, this is in the dead of winter in Michigan and the Midwest, and it was like really cold. I said, if you eat cold food like a popsicle, do you think that you'll end up not being cold? And he said, I don't know. And he goes, I'm suspect of certain outcomes, but why don't you go try it? So I grabbed a popsicle, put my clothes and boots on and scarf on and everything, and I ate a popsicle and I never got cold. I was outside for quite a while. I was shoveling snow, and, I was heated up. I had some activity. So that probably, diluted the being cold if I ate the popsicle. But I always was interested in science. I did some PH studies when I was 9 years old for a science fair project. And my teacher was so impressed with it that he sent it to the state and I came in second. I didn't know that until the next year. So, but it was interesting. So, that he came up to me and he said, hey, I have your award. And I said, from what? And it was just one of those things that you naturally gravitate. So I always think about it when you're happy and you're in your vibe, or when you're like doing what you love to do. And if somebody lets you actually do that as a child, you can really blossom. I probably should have went to a Montessori school, but my parents sent me to a private parochial school for 12 years. Which is where I probably get some of that discipline, and where that, it's instilled or beaten into you on some level. So, from that and going to college, I naturally gravitated towards science classes, and I did all pre-med classes by accident. And I just needed one more class in order to go to chiropractic school. And so I sat down and did it and decided to go to chiropractic school, and my whole life changed. I used to get migraine headaches. Someone said they were sinus headaches, and knowing what I know about acupuncture and oriental medicine now, I have to say there's a huge connection. But and then just naturally gravitating. So when I went to chiropractic school and had the mentors that I was really fed a lot of food for thought that made me want to be more and do more. So when I graduated, I got in an interim. I was married to a French guy his father was a chiropractor, osteopath, and physical therapist in the south of France. So it's just like, and getting adjusted by him or talking to him about, like, what have you seen in your career was so fruitful. It just kept on, adding more seeds to the soil and making sure that they were water intended. So one of the things about me is I love challenges. I wake up, and I do a puzzle every day just so that I get my brain in sync with looking at what a challenge looks like. And then and I think outside the box as I'm looking at some things like, oh, this can't be solved, and I said, it's got to be solved or else they wouldn't publish it. And that's my attitude. And I just like, or like, or else they're torturing people, who are very left brain like this. And so the second part of my personality is I love to make sense of things. I like to make sense and make them simpler, which doesn't mean that they're easy. It just means more doable, simpler, easier, faster, better way to get results so that you don't have to do all the hard work and you don't have to do it alone, which brings in, my third aspect of like my what, and my what is trust. I know when I tell somebody I'm going to show up, if I don't show up, it's just like that time that we met, and we're on the phone going, where is this place? I can't find, like, and exactly, I'm running late. I'm so sorry. But I always show up. Unless I'm bleeding, but, and something significant has happened. But it's just like I always show up. I always do the research. I always go out of my way because I want to make my clients' experience better than my experience has ever been. And when I mentor and coach, I like to lead by example so that if I don't know something, I just openly admit it and say, let's go find out what that is together. So I walk with clients and even friends, I walk with them as a team. And, you can get better results, when somebody has your back.
That
That's
is
me.
for sure.
That's me.
That is awesome. And so you've been doing this for 35 years. So over 35 years, you've learned a lot of different things. I'm sure you've found different ways of doing things than your traditional even training, because
Yeah.
you're a coach, you're doing the functional medicine. There's so many aspects to it. And your book, Why Are You Sick, Fat, and Tired? People don't want to be sick, fat, and tired. And you know sometimes we don't even know why we're tired.
Well, that's true, but what you would know if you knew the definition of health, which let's go over that. The Webster Merriam-Webster's dictionary says it's a condition of wholeness in which all the organs are functioning 100% of the time. The problem is we don't know that. That's number one. Number two, the World Health Organization in 1946 or 48 put out a definition of health, because that's when they started to really form and have presence in the public. And so they always said it was not the absence of disease or infirmities. And they go on with the bigger definition, which they upgraded in the 80s because they were pressured to have a more defined definition, which said it talked about environment, it talked about lifestyle, and that health wasn't the objective. It was, something that you did every day as a, and a lot of people don't understand. People go through weeks where they don't address their health. It's just there, it's in the back of their mind. So when when you look at that, you have like, well, how do I organize all that? So what I talk about is the 5 pillars of health, and which is proper diet, proper diet and nutrition, because one has got to feed into the other, or else you're doing, it's an oxymoron. They have to support each other. Proper exercise, proper sleep, positive mental attitude, and positive mindset. And I go properly functioning nervous system, which is proper posture and biomechanics and structures function. So I teach those 5 pillars, but I start with the 4th pillar, which was the positive mindset and a positive mental attitude, which I say equals success. And it ends up being successful when you add that back into the pillars of health, the first 3 especially, and the last one, because the last one suddenly becomes the next most important, because it helps handle whatever you do for proper diet, proper exercise, and proper sleep. It helps support you be even more, be bigger, and even have even more health and wellness and, and mental health and well-being, going down the road, so that when stuff happens, you have some fortitude, and you know where your foundational line is. A lot of people don't know their basics, which is a problem. And so when I'm teaching at 5 pillars, I talk about not putting the cart before the horse. And that when you do put the cart before the horse is when you're in command and you're in control of your health. Because if you're not in control of your thoughts, which is one of the big reasons why people get sick, then what happens is that you're not in control of your life. And if you're not in control of your life, you're not in control of your health.
Mhm.
So getting thoughts down and getting them handled is important, but getting that horse in the right place so that when you get on the horse, you can take the reins and you can snap that whip and you can get going in the right direction. And and you have more peace of mind, you have more knowledge, and you're more successful physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, social, and financially, work, home, play, relationships, whatever.
Yeah, and as you're talking about that, when you're tired, you don't feel like doing anything. It's hard to
Mhm.
even get out of bed or motivated. You're like, I'm just too tired to do that. So I've heard that, if you're having a hard time moving or changing or
Mhm.
feeling like you're just feeling bad, to always start saying things you're thankful for. What kind of
Mhm.
mindset things do you talk about that help people actually go from not moving to actually moving, going into action?
It's so funny that you mentioned that, because last week I started talking about the rule of one. And because I'm a mentor and coach, when I start talking about something, I actually go out and do it. So that if you ask me a question about it, I can talk to it and talk about it and talk you through it. So last week on Monday or Tuesday, I started videotaping going down the street where I'm at. The humidity, the heat index, like right now it's like 90 degrees outside and the heat index is like 100 and something. So when you go outside from this door here and you walk to the end of the street, which is less than 30 seconds to walk to, you're sopping wet soaking. It's wet. So I decided that I was going to teach people to start talking about the rule of one in my Facebook group. And I welcome any of your viewers if they're interested. It's called Be Stronger Than Medicine. And I'm Dr. Pat Boulogne. We'll put the link into it like later, or it's easy to find if you look up Be Stronger Than Medicine in the group. And the woman with the dark hair, me. Um, and so, what I started talking to is I started like, just do something. It doesn't matter what you do. Walk a block, walk a mile. You can walk, you can read a page, you can pay a debt, you can do, one thing of gratitude. You can, it's just like you can go out and do that twice. And each day that you do one thing, I built on it. So what I did is I did my 1 mile, and because I wanted to get acclimated to the heat down here and where I'm at in Mississippi. And then then the next day I added, I went a mile and a quarter or a mile and a half. And I started doing breathing techniques. So I started breathing in on my fingertips and breathing out on the way back. And so I just picked a distance, like from the stop sign to the middle of the block, and focused on that breathing as opposed to counting. Because when you count, then it takes you away from that experience. And then the next day I added 10 things I'm grateful for. I first said 3. I said, oh, forget 3, do 10. And out of the 10, if it involves a person, call that person up and tell them that you're grateful. It will mean so much to that person that day. And then I did things like rolling my shoulders and saying, don't forget, only roll them back. Make sure you're standing tall, and then I did the next day, I added in like rolling, doing small circles in the arms, only going back because we over exercise our flexors in our life as
Yeah.
we get older, right?
Mhm.
And and I kept on adding, onto it. And today I'm not walking, so I'm not recording for that. But I really like the fact that, in this process, I have to move a little bit where I'm sitting at, sorry. Um, is that I started noticing, so what am I getting out of this? I'm like not out of breath. even when I'm talking and trying to exercise at the same time, and or thinking three different thoughts at the same time and talking about them, and I have more energy, I'm sleeping better. And then I decided to throw in for my rule of one, intermittent fasting.
Mhm.
And so, which I always used to do when I worked in my office, because I would go in with just liquids until I went to lunch. And then I would eat, at lunch, or just eat, eat something really light and then eat a dinner when I was out. And I'd stop eating by 8 o'clock at night. And then I would do that cycle. So I intermittent fasted all the time. I didn't know it was called intermittent fasting. I thought
Mhm.
it was the Mediterranean diet.
Mhm.
That's how we learned it then. And that, but I advocate for it because I think that if you pay, and then it makes you pay attention to that. It makes you pay attention to how much you're hydrating, and I talked, one of the rules of one was hydration also. And that was one of the first days, because I realized, wow, if you don't watch it, you could have a problem. You could easily have a heat stroke down this place. And so I always made sure that I was well hydrated before. So there's like, that's how I can help people just start. It doesn't matter what it is. If you have struggle with doing that, and if you're saying, when you're tired that you don't, some people don't know they're tired. There's a lot of people who don't know that they're sick. I mean, I lived in Boston, and I think I told you the story when we met, is that I would go out at lunchtime. I'd walk through Boston and, take an hour midday, and I'd go sit down and watch all these people in the financial district look really stressed. All the women had navy blue suits on and blue navy shoes, and stockings, and, they'd carry their purse, or else they would wear their tennis shoes, because that was a big Boston thing, a fashion statement. And so I used to kind of, laugh when, and I would like watch these people. Then I started paying attention to their faces. And a lot of people had like nobody home thing, and so and I look like, are you okay? Are you happy? And some people look like they were angry. Some people look like they're going to cry. Are you okay? Do you need anything? And, people are like, no, thanks for asking. And I go, great. I said, if you see me, say hi, because I just saw so many lonely people doing the same thing every day. Um, and so, the other thing I did at that time is I read this report from the CDC that tested a huge group of people that said, out of 212 dangerous chemicals, that all those dangerous chemicals were in their blood and their urine. And then I knew at that moment when I read that, it's just like, I got to wake people up. Get up, you sleepyhead. Get out of bed. Look outside your dots. Because when we get in crisis, we always go back to that same spot in our head to try to figure out how to get out of it, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, social, financial, whatever it is. And we do what we know to be true, or what we originally learned. And then sometimes we just have to realize that box doesn't have walls. And so those solutions that are out there, whether they're solutions or solutions, SOUL,
Mhm.
they're there and they're for the taking. I don't believe that God wants any of us to suffer.
Mhm.
and so, it's just like having that awareness that, like, wow, there's other solutions. Let me investigate that. Let me see, because that's the challenge. Let me see if it makes sense, and let me see if I can figure out how to move it forward quicker, faster, better, and easier, so that I get the results. And I need to buddy up with a partner. I need a mentor. I need a coach. I need, my chiropractor, my acupuncture, whoever it is that you buddy up with, that you're on the same page to move forward, so you can hit your health goals and all those goals in every one of those sectors. Because then you have success. But it all starts with positive mindset and positive mental attitude and those other wellness initiatives. So you got to have it all together as part of the pie or puzzle, something like that.
Right. Yeah. And, you know, um, a lot of times people don't know they're sick because they don't have the awareness, or they don't have the science behind it. So I noticed that if I just go to one practitioner, they look at my blood test. So I'll do a whole bunch of blood tests. I'll look at my blood test and say, well, you're in the normal range in all of them. But
Hmm.
then I go to someone who does more functional medicine or integrative medicine, and they'll say, well, they're all in the normal range, but look at this one, which is a paired with this one. This one's high compared to this one that's low, and we need to balance those.
Mhm.
So I could be on the way to being sick or even sick, but it won't show up on your basic test, but it does show up. It's just you have to look closer. So kind of speak to that more preventative as opposed to just being okay.
So here's the scoop on blood work. On blood work, you either high or low. Okay, so you know you're in the danger zone on one or the other. The key is to take the normals and look at what's high normal and what's low normal. Excuse me, because that's where your body's trending. So if it's like normal and stays normal, or in that middle part range, you're golden. But if it fluctuates, then something's going on below the surface. There's something that's being very sneaky about your health and how it's expressing itself. And a lot of times we don't have any signs and symptoms until we're close to being in a crisis. Well, we actually do. We just don't pay attention to them. I
Mhm.
call them Grim Reaper syndrome. Things like, like floaters in the eye, or like people don't pay attention to their poop. Does it smell? Is it well formed? What color is it? Because it means something different if it's consecutively like that. Especially in Chinese medicine, they look at that pretty closely. And and they always ask about that. How many times you get up to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night? Can you go back to sleep? What's your sleep like? And ask you all these really big lifestyle questions. So the idea, and one of the reasons why when I wrote this book, was to help people start to identify at an early stage that they might have something going on. So
Mhm.
this book is organized as a workbook, guidebook, and an advocating tool. And what it does is it identifies your weakest link, because we don't always know what our weakest link is. Or when you have something that comes up, you'll ask your mother or your friend, you know, I've been having a really hard time suddenly adjusting, like in digesting peppers lately. And they'll say, like, oh, I had that too when I was your age. I just stopped eating them. Instead of trying to do something about it,
Uh-huh.
they just would say they are just going to stop eating them. And so, but the question I go is like, why? And if you're and then because that will eventually wear down your immune system, which if something starts to come by, like we saw in the last couple years, we saw a lot of people suddenly get sick and ill and die because they really were sick below the surface.
Mhm.
And that just was the virus is the virus. It just brought up whatever the symptoms were below the surface that were waiting for an opportunity to
Mhm.
manifest and express themselves. So that part of like me, it's like being aware of like little things, and say like if something's happening for like a week, it might just be that's a red flag, but it's not like a red flag that's like has a siren going off with it 24/7. But pay attention to it, and then pay attention to your blood workup. I think we all should get a full panel, and then look at where we nutritionally have to change. And also, in looking at the test don't guess, in order to pick what blood panel, what I do is when I use this book, Why Are You Sick, Fat, and Tired, what it does when I'm looking at that weakest link and how it relates to another organ system, I think like, okay, so the lifestyle medicine that's endorsed by the NIH says to do diet first, because diet a lot of times corrects lifestyle induced chronic illnesses and diseases, which are almost all of them, heart disease, diabetes, pre-diabetic. People don't even know they're pre-diabetic because they don't know the signs and symptoms, and they're really hard to tell. So there's a lot of things that come up like that. Look, at orthopedic tests only test 10% of function.
Mhm.
So it's just like it's the other part of the function. You have to be in a lot of pain for an orthopedic test to be positive. And so, the idea of the book is to take a look at all the organ systems. And if you can imagine like the inside, or go look at a picture of a Swiss watch, there's so many pieces of the puzzle inside that have to work together. So when they work together in that puzzle, then it's just like the watch keeps time perfectly. When one it starts to wear down, then the other parts start to wear down. So,
Mhm.
we have 11 organ systems basically in the body that this book particularly looks at. So you can see how you range, whether it's a low priority, which the lower the numbers, the better, moderate, or high priority. And if you have a high priority, I had a woman one time that had like 12 or 13 high priorities. And I looked at it and I went, wow, where do I want to start? So when in doubt, I always say, fix the gut, change your life.
Mhm.
And then if you can go back and fix the gut, in her situation, it was the gut, because that's where you get your nutrients from. That's where you choose your food to eat. And if you can digest your foods and utilize them properly, then whatever foods that you eat that have toxins in them, ideally should be end up in the toilet, either by urine or by, your feces or in your bowel movement. And that's the idea. What happens is that when you're eating, some of the foods that you eat could be harming the one cell layer lining, which makes it bust open, and some of your foods get absorbed into your blood system sooner. So when that happens is when you feel like, if you go out and have a glass of wine with your friends and you decide to have a second glass of wine and you feel really groggy the next day, foggy and that type of stuff, your liver's not processing whatever you're eating very well.
Mhm.
If you get tired after you eat, the combination of the foods that you eat are not processing, and you're not going to get that energy that you need to sustain, even your toughest, longest day. Because when you do that, your body has to suddenly go from being like bright, alert, happy to concentrating on your gut and getting like and organizing that food so it can go in the right places. And the thing about being sick, I mentioned thoughts before. One of the first things is they all have something interesting in common, and that's inflammation. And that is trauma, toxins, and thoughts. Because thoughts can create that, because it affects emotionally, can affect our gut and how we're handling food. And toxins are things like, for example, the air that you breathe, the water you drink, the cleaning products you use in your house, the gardening products that you use. It's just like, people have spray cans, people drink water out of plastic bottles. You're drinking plastic,
Mhm.
and when that gets in your body, it stays there. The thing about toxins is that it goes in, and it goes into blood, brain, bone, and fat. That's where it's stored when the can't get rid of it out of the body. And
Mhm.
trauma are things like, the car accidents, the slip and falls down steps, sports injuries, carrying a backpack incorrectly. Like you see kids with them down, they're not in the right place, down low. They're trying to lean forward to compensate for it. That poor posture, someone who's like works on the computer all the time.
Mhm.
Um, but the interesting thing, an interesting statistic is 9 out of 10 children when they're born have some type of cervical injury to the neck. And so, that's why you see a chiropractor from the get go, so that you can get the mechanics of that, and they have better odds in their favor as they grow up. So all three of those things work together. But, that thought portion that I talk to can undo whatever you do to correct the trauma, and those kind of injuries and arthritis, that type of thing, to correct the trauma and correct the toxin portion of it up to 5 to 7 times, and it can undo it. So you really have to have command of your thoughts. I heard this last night, and the last thing I heard in the meditation before they went into the meditation music was, it woke. I mean, I went from like starting to meditate, to like sitting up and going, oh my God. And because that's the third, like, thought, principle. And it said, the person said, if you don't have command of your thoughts, you don't have command of your life. And in order to have command of your life, on that physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, social, and financial side, you have to have command of your thoughts, because thoughts are powerful and words are powerful. And I literally went from being like in this meditative, like ready to go and meditate, to somebody like pouring ice cold water over me, kind of. I'm like, oh my, it was like an oh my God moment. And so I'm going, God, I should make a post about that, or talk about that on my Mindset Monday things, or the weekly mindset things I do on LinkedIn, because I think it's important. And people don't really talk about it that much,
Mhm.
and they don't talk about the importance of that, or that, if you think it, beware of what you think, for you might get it. I don't know who said that, but it's just like, you think you're going to have a problem, then you will have problems, and you can manifest those out. So it's always, I have a really cool slide in, when I give a talk called Wellness Mindset Initiative, and the slides are cool. You'd love it. I will send it to you. um, and what it is, it has two sides, and one side is the side of manifestation, and the other side is not. And so it talks about emotions that, you're manifesting when you have this experience: contentment, joy, you're wishing, people well, you're calm, you have peace of mind, in faith and hope. charity. I mean, those kind of things. On the other side, you have a whole list ranging from like boredom, like worry, things that sometimes you can't do anything about in a way, like you can't do anything about worry. So you just have to physically think, stop, and tell
Mhm.
your brain to stop. And it goes all the way down to anger and anxiety and depression, and it ends up with fear. And I always say, I said, God, I go, we have so many fears that stop us. Where do we learn those?
Mhm.
And a lot of times we learn them from our role models growing up. And it's just like, and the thing is that you might have heard something that you misconstrued, and it's been stuck there forever. So I always found that when I do a special technique with people, when I hit that, like when they're not progressing, they kind of hit a plateau, and the mentoring coaching, I would say, all right, let's just close the book today. Tell me what's really going on with you. And then we look at like what emotion that is, what side of that fence you're on, and
Mhm.
then is it manifesting out as a fear, and where does that fear come from, and how did it make you feel now, and how did it make you feel the last time you experienced, and the time before that, and the time before that. And we get it down to where you can't think of anything else before that, whether it's related to a time, place, thing, or an event. And then we sit with it and we run it like a movie. We take the event, the person that's involved, or the situation, and I always say, like, run it like a movie in your head.
Mhm.
Close your eyes and start from the beginning to the end. Let me know when you're at the end, you know, and then tell me how you feel. Is it a memory, or are you so reactive to it?
Mhm.
Because we have stored in our mammalian brain all the emotions of everything that ever happened to us, and we base some of our decisions about how we need to behave in certain situations based upon that memory.
Mhm.
So it triggers the same emotional experience in your body again and again, unless you change it. And in order to change it, you really have to have your conscious brain. There's the lizard brain, your primitive brain, the mammalian brain, and the conscious brain. You have to have your conscious brain really have some, that you have, that's where the thought comes in, and the thought is being powerful, because then you can say, your conscious brain can talk to your mammalian brain going, no, I can have a good experience about this. It doesn't have to be that way. So that was that way, like this. If I change this one thing, it's going to be a positive experience. So your brain has all these great, starting to, coagulate all these really great, wonderful experiences so that you can be happy consistently. And you can be happy, you can even be even more happier than you already are. How cool is that? And when you're happy, your body responds in a positive way. So when you're not happy, you just have to sit, think, what is it that's really bothering me? And is there something I can do about it? And who's involved? And what is it really? And if it's keeping you up at night, you know, either fix it right away, or then when you come back to bed after, or if you write it out after you come back to bed, give yourself permission to go to sleep, because between the time you go back to sleep and wake up, it's not going to go anywhere. It's still going to be there. And you can deal with it when you first get up in the morning, and then you can get it off your plate forever. So it's just, there's so many cool things about, in like the mind, and being wellness, and being happy, and being healthier, and having mental well-being, and being so strong that nobody can ever disturb your peace of mind. I help people, and you help people get to that place,
Mhm.
and it's just like, and having the habits and the rituals that support that. I mean, how, it's just like, what a gift we've been given to share with masses of people.
It's true. That is so
Yep,
true.
yep.
So, Dr. Pat, I'm sure there's some people that would love to work with you or find out more about what you're teaching. So, how can they contact you?
Well, one way that they can contact me is they can buy this book at Amazon. Why Are You Sick, Fat, and Tired? There are links in there to connect with me, and also, for the book. And I we met on LinkedIn, so I have a significant presence on LinkedIn. If you're on LinkedIn, please, jump in and reach out, uh, and have a complimentary talk, discovery talk. You're like what's below the surface that's holding you back? Let's get rid of it. And they reached out to me there. I have a website. My website is I have a mock-up that's going to be coming out shortly. But the cool thing about my website, which is called healthteamnetwork.com, is on the front page. If you scroll down, there's a microphone. And if you click on the link next to the microphone, that little box, you can leave me a message. You can ask me any question that you want, and it comes directly to my email. And then, it's when, doing that, I go through that and am able to answer and able to connect, and then, get what your concern is or your praise or, and that, so it's addressed. So that's some of the best ways. I'm also on Facebook. I have, my Facebook page that I invite people to in the very beginning was Be Stronger Than Medicine. So please feel free, and then when you get on there, just let me know where you came from. And I'm going to be opening that up, to help more people. And so like-minded people can go to the same place and support each other being even better.
Beautiful. Thank you. And now just a personal question. What gives you the most happiness and fulfillment in your life at this point?
Doing good, having fun, and thriving. The thing that I miss the most, and I ended up getting a dog, and he's so great. He was so special, and he lived 5 years past his prime, because I did what I teach people to do. I did with him, and so, but when I had him, it's just like I very rarely went on vacation, but we did a lot of road trips together. He was like in something like one international, he went to Canada, and he was in, I think 39 or 40 states, so I put a lot of miles on the car.
Mhm.
And so we had a lot of, I had that, experience with him. And, but I miss traveling. I miss jumping the pond and being in England, and seeing beautiful things and experiencing people. I love seeing people thrive. So, when I've traveled, I've always, I like seeing people I've met such kind people who have gone out of their way. From the first time I ever went to Europe, couldn't speak a word, nothing was bilingual, and somebody stopping who spoke English and actually walking me down, getting my ticket validated, showing me how to do that, and getting my ticket validated, learning how to read the train thing. The guy missed his train twice, and then telling me, when he got in the train, he sat next to me and he was asking me, he had people in the United States, and he was just so kind. I would never, ever, ever forgot this guy. And I always tell that story about meeting him, because I was sitting in my luggage and going, wow, now I did it. Like, I don't speak the language. I'm in Belgium and I have no clue where I have to go in order to go to it, because I can't read the signs. I'm
Uh-huh.
going, that was not the most smartest move. And you couldn't, I had a dictionary, but you couldn't, it's like finding people the same, you're going like word by word. So you didn't have the conveniences that we have today,
Mhm.
where you could say something and then show somebody, they go, oh yeah, 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 kind
Uh-huh.
of thing. So it was, I like spreading kindness. I like, doing good deeds, having fun and thriving. And I like to see people have that same experience.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast today and for sharing
Thank
all
you.
your ideas and thoughts and experience of all those years.
Hmm.
And I have one last question for you. What is your
Okay.
best advice on living an incredible, amazing life?
There is a puzzle called the 9 dots and that puzzle in the 9 dots, excuse me, in order to create a solution for it, it tells you to draw 4 straight lines that are continuous and not pick the pencil up. The only way that that puzzle is solvable is by going outside the 9 dots. Those 9 dots represent that primitive brain, that lizard brain that I talk about. As every time something happens, you go back to that 9 dots to say, what do I know? Then you look at the emotion, you look at the mammalian brain going, oh, do I do this? And sometimes our solution, and many times our solution, is outside the 9 dots. We have this, when we see that, we have this imaginary wall that is on those 9 dots, because we're trying to always draw the line within the 9 dots. And so just know that there's such an infinitesimal possibility that if you're going down the road and you're doing something again and again and again, and you're not getting the results that you want to get, Einstein defines that as insanity. It's just like, stop doing it. Go outside in 9 dots. Look at something like, the challenge will be for you to find something like, okay, so I found this. These are possibilities for whatever it is. I want to go, to Europe. I have a health problem. These are the 5 possibilities of things that I can do. Let me read about them and see what makes the best sense for me. And then find the mentor or coach or the trainer, whoever it is, or other people who have already been there, to get information from them so that you can make a better decision consistently outside the 9 dots and never put that wall up again. It's just like, so it's there. It's like you can see it. But think about it when you go to do the 9 dot, when you go to solution, how that could be a possibility for someone who doesn't really understand that there's always a possibility. There's always something that you can do. You just got to open your eyes and look around and realize there's no walls in your life and go do it.
I love that. There's always possibilities.
Yep, there
Thank
is.
you so much, Dr. Pat. So
Thank
we'll
you.
talk again soon.
Okay, we'll talk soon. Love being here. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share with your listeners. I appreciate it. Appreciate